Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we're talking a little bit more about Salamangreats. I want to go into a couple of cards that already exist for them that are kind of underrated. I think a lot of people are kind of sleeping on to them, and I think they need to keep in mind, depending on the route Konami goes with the new support, some of these cards could become not just decent, but playable and even really, really good, like staples in the deck. So Salamangreat is one of those archetypes that just has a million different cards. They were given a ton of new support cards. Not new support, but they were just given a ton of support over the years. And they sit in this spot where they just have a lot of cards that just weren't good enough at the time, haven't really had a home in the deck in a competitive way just yet. And so with this new wave, whenever we get it, I'm actually expecting it, like, honestly, next week, I think makes a lot of sense. Some of these cards may be a little extra playable than they ever were before. So, yeah, keep in mind we're going to get 7 new cards for the salad stuff. That's a ton. It's one as another thing as well that Konami likes to do with a couple of these archetypes. We've seen it with Code Talkers. Now we're seeing it with Salads. They have a Ritual. They have Links. They have a Fusion, and they also have an Exceed monster as well. No Synchro. It's one of those archetypes that I think they want to give an extract mechanic of every type to, and so until then, I think they're going to keep it coming, and so I'm kind of expecting a Synchro in this set. I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm sure we'll get a Link monster or two as well. It makes a ton of sense. It's a Link-based deck at heart, but we've also seen Mirage Stallion be very good, so there's a world where they make a new tuner, they make a new Synchro, and it kind of works out. It's actually worth playing. We'll have to see. So let's get into some of these cards. I think I have 7 different cards here that don't normally see play. Foul was in and out. It was one of those cards where, depending on the build and what they were going for, you could see it, but it doesn't always go that way. But Foul is really cool. It's a simple level 4 extender. If a Salamangreat monster, except for itself, is summoned, it can actually chain block certain stuff, so that's really cool. You can chain block like a Baylink, so your opponent can't ash that on your attempt to get the field spell. Sometimes that actually is good. But it would jump out on the field. It's a level 4. It's 1800. It has another effect where it can technically lock a back row, but you have to pitch a Salamangreat card from hand or field to do it. Not the worst thing in the world. It actually could come up potentially, but mostly this was just a simple level 4 extender, and it could chain block at times. Decent card overall. Depending on where we end up, maybe Konami gives us another rank 4 for them. Maybe we just want to play rank 4. Salad does not usually lock you out of the extra deck except for, or certain things, except for maybe Mirage Stallion sometimes. I could see this card coming up, or just being an important level 4 extender, even if a Synchro is revealed. Depending on the level of the Synchro and the level of a tuner they might reveal with it, this could be the kind of card where, like, oh, you know what, we do need a really important extender for certain lines. That's level 4. Right? And this gives you another option there. It's kind of cool. Next up is Mirror. This card summons itself if it's added from deck to hand, just like Trickstar Lilybell. And if it's already in hand, you can actually just pitch any other Salamangreat card to special summon this card from hand. Not terrible, especially since the archetype is filled with cards such as Spinny and Jack Jaguar that kind of want to be engraved anyway. So it's just a decent extender. I don't expect this card to be crazy, but it's just a nice addition. It's a nice another extender. The deck doesn't play a lot of 2s because your Exceeds are rank 3. Right now, sometimes you would make rank 4s, but you're never playing with 2s. Again, if Synchro is the route they go, there's a world where a level 2 extender could be kind of important to facilitate a Synchro depending on its level. So just another decent card that never really saw continuous play. Mole is another one that falls right into that category. As long as you have Link summoned this turn during your main phase, you can special summon this to a zone your Link monster points to. And if you control no monsters, you can banish it from grave to target 5 Salad cards in grave, shuffle them into the deck, then draw 2, kind of like a Pot of Avarice built into your monster. I don't hate this card, especially since Salad fairly regularly was a deck that would end on 1, maybe 2 monsters. And so if your opponent broke your board, it means that they cleared your 1 or 2 monsters, which is very easy. And then as long as you survive, next turn Mole draws 2. That's a pretty cool idea. Now, in practice, I think it doesn't work out quite as well as you want it to, because Salad is a deck that wants to get all its cards in grave, and this is a card that puts them all back in the deck. But to be fair, if you go through enough extra deck monsters, putting Balinxes back, putting Sunlight Wolves back that you've linked through, and maybe another new Link 2 or something that could come out, maybe that's more worth it, right? Where you're not losing straight up value. You don't want to put your Spinnies back. You don't want to put your Jack Jaguars back. But the draw 2 is still powerful in and of itself. So definitely a card to keep in mind, because it's not even a bad extender anyway. It's also level 1. Another new level, depending on the synchro, could be good. Just keep that in mind. Salamangreat Recurrence is the next one. This card can target 2 Salad monsters engraved with different names. Add them back to hand. Very simple card, but it is pretty powerful. It's a straight up +1. You trade 1 card for 2. But again, kind of same thing as Mole. The deck already has a ton of recursion, and a lot of your Salad monsters you would rather have in grave. I'd rather leave Jack and Spinny in grave rather than add them back for next turn. Maybe Gazelle is nice to add back because he can obviously do stuff on the opponent's turn, but I don't think this card's nearly as necessary. But could be a fun one-of, especially depending on the support, if there are more cards that aren't necessarily as high value in grave, but are actually more valuable in hand, potentially. Like, what if Salad got their own hand trap card? Like, that could be a thing, right? Moving on, quick play spell, Salamangreat Transcendence. This is a really cool card. This card lets you do a quick link summon with a Salamangreat monster, pretty much summoning another copy of itself. It pretty much says just do a quick reincarnation summon. This is really interesting. We already have Pyro Phoenix, but my problem with Pyro Phoenix is you have to get so far to get to Pyro Phoenix. There's so many ways to punish it that, like, if you get this card, sure, that's like decently powerful, because like you get to quick effect destroy all cards your opponent controls on their turn, which is pretty good. But like, I don't know, it's a cool card because it kind of can help you play around certain things, targeting removal, targeting negation, stuff like that anyway, on your link monsters. But also, depending on what we get, could also be an interruption card as well. It's interesting. I'm not going to say it's great just yet, but like, I don't think it's a bad card. And it's definitely a card that could be good depending on the situation, depending on the format. If like Veiler, Imperm, you know what I mean, Ogre, stuff like that are super common, this card lets you dodge a lot of those cards. So that's really cool. Moving on, Salamangreat Gift. This may be my literal favorite one on this entire list, as far as where I could see it being really good. But it's another interesting trap card. I mean, obviously we have Roar and Rage, which are the staples in the deck. Very good interruptions, both of them in different ways. But this one's a little bit different. This card's not as much of an interruptive card as much as it is like a grind card. The deck's already good at grinding, but this card lets you grind in a different way than a lot of the other parts of the deck do. So Salamangreat Gift is a continuous trap, which is very cool. It lets you discard a Salamangreat monster to send a Salamangreat monster from deck to grave, then draw 1 card. So pitch 1 Salamangreat monster, you get to Foolish another one from deck and draw a card. Immediately make up the value of the card you had in hand. That's very cool. It has a second effect as well, that if you control a reincarnation linked Salamangreat monster currently, then you can discard a Salamangreat monster to draw 2 cards instead. You can't do both effects in the same turn, but you can pick one. If you have the reincarnation one, then you can do the draw 2, which is really cool. It gives you extra options. If there's not something super clear that you want to send, you can just draw 2. And we all know Salamangreat's always been one of those mid-rangey control-y decks where you play like 15-ish hand traps, and drawing 2 is giving away a really good shot for one of those to be a hand trap, even on the opponent's turn. So I quite like that a good bit. And there's also the other thing to keep in mind, that this gives you a quick Foolish Burial on the opponent's turn. Salamangreat does not really have any great trigger monsters in the grave that trigger like when they're sent. We have Falco, I guess, who like sets a card back to the field. But other than that, there's not a ton of great trigger monsters. Like, what if we just got an extra little monster in the deck that says, like, when this card is sent to the graveyard, just generically sent to the graveyard, you can like special summon this card back to the field, or maybe it's like, and you control a Salamangreat card, something, right? Special summon this card back to the field, and if you do, destroy 1 card your opponent controls. Now we're talking, because now it makes this first effect, pitch a Salamangreat monster to summon an extender, pop an opponent's card, and redraw for the card you pitched, which could be a hand trap anyway. That is actually really good value on the opponent's turn, and with this being continuous every single turn. So very much so need to keep that in mind. And same thing with the other effect, the second effect. If you hard draw a monster like that, you can even pitch it as cost for this card if you just hard drew it, have it in hand. pitches cost, you're still going to reborn and pop, and then you draw 2. So that's just a very specific example, but if we got something in that realm, Gift could take a huge step forward as like a really important card in the deck. So I like the optics of this card, depending on where they go with the support. And the last card is Heatleo. It's pretty simple, but it's just a really nice tool to help deal with back row. That's really the main thing it does, and it is generic enough. So it's fine. I just think this card's a little slept on, and I know later on in Salamangreat's lifespan, people weren't opting to play this card at all. I still think it's a really good card. The fact that it shuffles back is really strong as well, taking away a couple forms of protection as well from certain cards. I think that's pretty good. So we'll take it. Nothing crazy here. Just wanted to throw this one out there. I still don't think Pyro Phoenix will be playable enough. I just think it's too much investment for a card that like you have to get to it, then your opponent's gonna have a period to respond, and then you have to reincarnation summon. When a lot of times you'd rather just reincarnation link summon the Sunlight Wolf anyway, because that's just better value, a safer play in general, and I don't know. I just don't see it working out. But Heatleo, I could see it being a thing. But obviously, we'll have to wait and see. So a lot of this is conditional. A lot of this is just wait and see. We're going to probably in the next week or two see what the new support is, or at least the wave, everything but one card. And depending on where it goes, some of these cards could be really, really cool. But obviously, I will bring you that whenever that stuff drops. I'll make a video covering the new cards, so stay tuned for that. Let me know your thoughts down in the description. This is a deck that I've always liked, even when it was meta, but when it's meta, I just don't want to play a ton of mirror matches. Everyone's going to be side decked and main decked for it, so that's always an issue that I don't want to have to deal with. And now that it's kind of under the radar, I'm a little more interested in the deck yet again. So I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, guys, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff from me down the line, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.